So I've had the Legion 5 for, I think, a week or two now. I haven't been using it a ton, but I've been using it as much as I can. I've even done some basic Unity development on it. I'll be talking about thermals today, as well as some other things like general impressions, how the device feels to use, etc. So starting off with just general impressions on using the device. I mean, overall, the device is very sturdy. If you're looking for comparison between the Omen 15, the Legion definitely has the upper hand in terms of like lid rigidity. It's quite rigid. I mean, the lid doesn't flex much even in the middle, and there's a few things that are the reasoning for that. The hardware maintenance manual for this laptop shows basically there's metal bars along the left and right side of the screen. I believe both riveted and glued into the back of the panel here, so that provides a lot of lid rigidity. The hinges screw into that metal panel that's riveted into this back plastic, so there's not a high chance, or really any chance, of the mounting ripping out unless there's some major structural failure. And that's really nice to see from Lenovo, because as you may know, I covered the Flex 5 on the channel, and it has a problem where the hinge mounting is not very good, and you can see it pretty obviously if you're just opening and closing the lid. This laptop does not have that problem. In terms of how it feels to use, the keys are very nice to use. It feels even more like a ThinkPad than the Flex 5 did, which is definitely a nice change. What I'm going to do for this demo here is I'm going to push the N key down. Well, I'm going to push my caliper down 1.59 millimeters. About, maybe a little more. 1.7? Let's see. Yeah, 1.7 seems about right. And if I push this down, again, 1.7 here, you can see it's this little tip sticking out of the bottom of the caliper, that little metal rod. That's how we're measuring the depth here. I'm just going to push this down until it's flush with the plastic, and that brings us to 0.09. So, you know, roughly 1.6 millimeters of key travel. I don't believe that's quite where ThinkPad keyboards are. I'll have a message somewhere up here if I'm wrong about that, but the travel overall is very nice. Keyboard is quite nice to use. I never had any issue with it when I was programming, writing, anything really on this laptop. And the rollover's quite good. Well, WASD. Yep, all of them respond. How about if I'm gaming like this? How about if I push down on this row of keys? Wow. That's quite impressive. Yeah, I mean, as you can see here, no problem whatsoever just picking up on every key press. You can just kind of drag across the keyboard and it picks it up pretty well. So I have to say that's pretty much N key rollover, so no problem there. Some people were saying on the Omen they had issues pressing between A and D at times. I mean, you can see A, D, A, D, 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 da, 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 da. It's working perfectly fine, so no issues there. In terms of other than keyboard, I mean, trackpad's very nice, smooth. I think it's at least a smooth surface. I don't know if it's glass, but it's precision as well, so it's a pretty solid trackpad. No real issues with, like, they're nice clicky, it's not too deep, it's not squishy like the old Legion touchpad buttons were, so pretty quality machine. My only complaint really with the deck and just, you know, top stuff here, I don't like this finish. It's one of the nicest soft touch finishes I've ever used or really touched. It's just slightly grippy and slightly smooth, but it's still got that kind of like greasy feel to it. And, you know, if you use it a fair bit, it'll get all like dark. And if you live in a hot climate or you sweat a lot on your wrists or something like that, this is going to get really grippy and sticky really quickly. So keep that in mind. Screen, you know, 144 Hertz. If we load up Radeon settings light here, we can take a look at display settings. And we can see that we have FreeSync on, and FreeSync is supported to 60 to 144 Hertz. It doesn't go down to, it's not 40 to 60 like the Omen 15 is. You get 60 to 144, so a bit nicer of a range, but at the same time, it doesn't go as low as would be nice. But at the end of the day, I can't really complain too much because it does a decent job anyway. Since we have a Chrome open, let's do a quick battery life look. This will just be idle power draw. We'll just take a look real quick. This is not my full battery testing by any means, but I figure it's important to at least check these numbers. Power profile, that's still on better battery. So one thing to know when I'm doing these battery tests, what you want to see ideally under idle conditions is levels below 5 watts, because below 5 watts generally gives you the idea that the system is very well optimized for battery life. As you can see here, our CPU is only really accounting for about 2 watts of this right now. So that's 5.5 watts of idle draw about. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be about 5.5 watts of idle draw outside of the CPU. So not sure where that's going to, but that's just a little preliminary look at battery life on this thing. I'll be doing more testing, but I should say in general my battery life estimates haven't been very high. I do have the 60 watt hour model, so that doesn't help matters, but just be aware that battery life on this system, isn't, you're not going to be getting stellar battery life. This thing's not really optimized for it. Yeah, whatever. Now that we've done both those things, let's talk about thermals. Yeah, the Legion and Omen do very similar things thermally. The only difference is the temperatures that the Omen versus the Legion 5 achieve when they actually settle down to their long-term power levels, as well as how long it takes the Legion versus the Omen 15 to actually go down to those levels, because that's also important, because you don't want to have the processor sitting at unsafely hot temperatures for extended periods of time. It's just not good for the components neighboring the CPU. That's my main concern. But yeah, let's go into the thermal testing now. For thermal testing, I have the laptop right here, so you can see I'm going to put this into performance mode. And one thing I should mention is you can easily tell the performance mode of at least most Legions by just looking at their power button. If it's in red, that's performance. If it's in blue, that's the cool quiet mode. And if it's white, that's just auto. But we're going to have this in performance first, just to see how it handles itself in performance, because we want to see what the raw thermal management will just do. So I'm going to fire up AIDA64 in heaven here. Watch this graph closely. You'll see we're running at 65 watts. CPU diodes at 89, 97 now. Let me quickly fire up hardware info 64 again, because I think we closed that. My bad. Yeah, all right, so we spiked up to 102, 100. Should note the fans aren't really that loud. It's not picking up on the mic. Yeah, it's hardly registering, but the fans are slowly spinning up. You can see we had a huge spike there to 108C. Yeah, 107.3 if you look at hardware info 64 numbers. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of seeing systems go up to temperatures above 100. I like to see them run below 100 because, for one, that's good for comfort, because naturally, your hands when you're gaming on a laptop are here, and the processor and GPU are here. So if they're running cooler, that generally means better comfort, and, just throwing insulation at the matter is not really solving the problem. You're just kind of delaying the inevitable heat of the top of the laptop, which only really benefits reviewers, not customers. And I know a lot of you guys game for hours. So if you're gaming for hours, naturally heat's going to build up here if your processor's just sitting at max draw and not cooling itself and whatnot. GPU. This is the GPU right here. We're running at 80 watts. Temperatures are more than fine, 66, 67. You can see them in the chart here. It's this blue line, and that's been just kind of flat. The thing is, the 4000H and the 4600H, they don't need really more than 45 watts. Under most conditions, they won't need more than 35, and that's one of the nice things about the Acer Nitro 5 I looked at a while ago. Its power limit is 35, but it's not really to its detriment. It just kind of sucks for customers because, it's a 45 watt chip and it's limited to 35 for no reason. But at the end of the day, you still get leading performance. It still outperforms pretty much everything, and it's still more than enough for 90% of tasks. So There we go. Plunging 49, 48. Yeah, now we're dropping down to basically what I'd call PL1, which is just long-term power limit of 45 watts roughly. And you can see our temperatures have dropped down to about 95. So that's about max of what I'd say is I'm comfortable with seeing a CPU run at. But I mean, it's still dropping. It's going to take a while for this heatsink to fully cool down. And while we're at it, let's take a look at some top deck temps. I'll switch to Celsius because I know a number of you guys got confused last time when I used Fahrenheit, and I apologize. So palm rest over here, 23, 22. Trackpad, 22, 23, 24. How about keyboard? WASD region, 29C, 27. Actually, it's cooler, like right above the vent here, which is nice. But unfortunately, the WASD keys are quite warm, and that's about 84. So, it's hotter than the Omen. But the Omen has active air intake here and here on the keyboard, so that's kind of to be expected. Like on the Omen, it does get a little hotter in the middle. Even hotter as you go over this direction, and then it starts to cool down back to 20s, and then at the very edge here, it's like, it's 30. So it's a little warmer on this side, which makes sense. I believe this is the GPU side, but I might be mistaken. How about along the top? $40, $38, $36, $32, $31. So yeah, it's, this feels warm. It's not cool like the Omen was. I mean, it's actually... This is kind of cool. I think there's some kind of air intake here, but it's not like perfectly aligned with the WASD like it was on the Omen, which I'm not 100% certain why that is. Maybe it has something to do with how this is set back. So the fan is like here instead of here where it was on the Omen, but that's something to keep in mind. The keyboard does get warmer than the Omen for sure. But yeah, back to the testing of the stress test. You can see we're at 45 watts, 93C, which, if I recall, that is a better temperature than we got with the Omen 15, like under auto fan conditions. And let me get my sound meter here, and we can do a basic sound check, see how loud it is. So you can see we're at 54 decibels dBA, roughly. I'll just let that go again. So yeah, it's not the quietest thing on the planet. But let's see what happens if we switch to the quiet mode. This is the cool and quiet mode. Keep the sound meter going here. So you can see that the power levels dropped. We're now at 25 watts on the CPU. GPU is now running still at 80. Now this is considerably quieter. It's also much cooler here. You can see the CPU temp's like 76 now. GPU temp's not changed because it's still outputting the same amount of power, but overall the system is much cooler. We're running roughly 3 gigahertz right now. And one thing I want to say, if you want to improve your temperatures, for one, I wouldn't, because there's nothing you really need to change here. Just know that it takes roughly 10 minutes for it to drop down to this 45 watt level here. That, keeps you close to 3.7 gigahertz across all cores in this particular stress test. But as many of my comments of the Omen 15 videos have noted, it's very rare that the system will get above 7980C on the processor anyway, just because of how efficient Zen 2 Ryzen 4000 mobile processors are. So Again, it's nothing to be super concerned about now, but it's something to be aware of for the future. There are tools you can use to manually set your performance levels if you really want to do that. You can join the Discord, link in the description. If you want more info on how to do that specifically, I might make a video on it in the near future, but yeah, that's my take on the thermals. The thermal solution is more than adequate when the system's running at power levels that are reasonable. It does do this really long boost period at the beginning, which is not necessarily bad, but it does give a false sense of performance in things like Cinebench, but it could be beneficial for things like renders where it might only take 5-10 minutes and then it's over with. So take that how you will. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan. I wish there was more control over that. As you can see, I put it back to auto and it instantly crammed itself back up to like 55 watts. Kind of silly, and you know, if you I don't know, your games might be spiking that high frequently. It just really varies. But anyway, yeah, that's my take on thermals so far. The keyboard backlight, there's 2 states for it, I believe. Yeah, there's this bright, there's this like kind of dim, and then very bright, and then off. Let me zoom in more so you can see that more clearly again. There's this dim setting, sorry. There's dimish, very bright, and off. And the dim setting, it's a little bright for nighttime use, but it's fine. And bright's more than visible in bright environments, so nothing to be concerned about there. And the screen brightness wise, it can get quite dim, which is nice for night viewing. I mean, this is minimum brightness, and it looks almost black on camera, and it looks pretty much black in person. I mean, if you look at this TV here, I mean, that's black, and this is like kind of gray. I mean, turn the lights out. Well, my main light, and it's not much darker, so yeah, it's not much darker than, you know, it's actually darker than my curtains, so gotta say, it gets nice and dark, and I appreciate that. It also gets plenty bright. It's a 300 nit panel, and as you can tell, I mean, let me load up Chrome here, go to a white page. That is brighter than anything else in the shot, and it's very visibly bright to me. So yeah, definitely 300 nit panel, decent 144 hertz panel. But yeah, that's basically my thoughts on the Legion 5 so far. I'll be doing some benchmarks and game performance in this thing as requested. I'll also be doing more expansive coverage, and I will be doing a live stream. My Legion 5 live stream will be happening, I'm thinking Tuesday. It'll be on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Central. You can look up that. I'll have a link in the description for the time, and I'll also have a link to the live stream page where it'll have the, you know, starting in so many hours. But yeah, that's all I have for today's video. And if you like the video, be sure to give it a like, leave a comment if you have any questions, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, or just join the Discord if you want to talk with me or other viewers, or just have any questions that you feel would be better suited there. Check out the Amazon link in the description for this laptop. Just keep in mind, palm rest and the 60 watt-hour battery is not the best for battery life, but performance is there. I haven't seen much in terms of like reliability issues with the Legion 5, no glaring defects that I found online, but please let me know if you run into any issues if you end up buying one. I'll also be doing an HP Omen versus Legion 5 video soon, just like a strict one-to-one comparison. So if you want to see that, again, be sure you're subscribed. I will be doing it. I'll probably also do it on my live stream. So if you want to see that, just check the VOD for that before the video comes out, because I'll have a video dedicated to it at some point here. But yeah, that's it for today. I hope the video was helpful, and I'll see you later.